And well now, greetings. It's good to see everyone gathered together here tonight. So what prophets have we been discussing? You young lady, speak up.
Who did?
I did
Agabus. Ah, man of faith. Very good.
Did Aaron?
Aaron. Did you know much about Aaron?
Yeah.
Was he a good, strong man or weak?
A bit of both.
A little bit of both. Imperfection does that to individuals, doesn't it? Are you sometimes strong? Sometimes weak? But did Jehovah use Aaron? Yes, indeed. He tried his best to be strong. And that's when Jehovah used him the most, right? He'll do the same for you. And Nehemiah, you haven't said much tonight.
We did Adam and Aaron. I don't remember that much.
You remembered some of them though. Good, you were listening carefully. That's good. So tell me, do you have any questions for me? I know I got invited. I thought you'd have some questions. Yes, young lady.
What was it like in your day?
What was it like in my day?
Oh.
Well, I had a very interesting life. All the way from being born and placed in the water, found by the daughter of Pharaoh. I grew up in the house of Pharaoh too, learning their ways. But you know, I'd rather be with my brothers, the slaves, who are making all the buildings in Egypt. I chose life with them rather than be a prince in Pharaoh's house. Then I was sent away for 40 years to learn how to be humble, to be patient. Jehovah trained me well, because when it came time for my assignment, I was a little reluctant. But then Jehovah made me mediator between him and the whole nation of Israel. And I served as a mediator for many, many years. I had to go back to the house of Pharaoh too. Remember all the plagues? I had to tell Pharaoh that unless he let his people go, bad things were going to happen to his house. And they did, didn't they? Do you remember some of the plagues? Sean, do you know any of the plagues? Do you know how many plagues there were? 10. Very good. So what were some of the plagues?
What about the cat?
Yes, young lady.
The first one, male first one.
That's right.
You would think that would change somebody's mind.
Yes, indeed. Alex.
The 3 days of total darkness.
Darkness, yes, right. Jehovah had power over all the light over Egypt, right? Except for in the land of Goshen where God's people resided. Nehemiah.
Water turned to blood.
Yes, water turned to blood. Do you think the people were thirsty? They were very thirsty and they
7
had
days without
nothing to
water,
drink.
yeah.
All there was blood everywhere and they could not drink anything.
Stinky too.
Yes.
The frog.
The frogs. Did they worship a god
Heck.
that was like a frog? Yeah.
One of them.
Yes, indeed.
There were many.
And yet they had so many frogs in the land, they were sick of them. They were in their bread, in their ovens,
In their bed.
in their beds. They could not sleep for all the frogs.
Croaking.
Any other plagues that you remember?
There were, was it boils?
Mm-hmm,
On
that's
the
right.
flesh, yeah.
Remember, the boils were on the people and the animals.
Yes.
Everyone was in pain. That's right.
Gnats, pestilence,
Yes.
locusts.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hail.
What did they do in the land? The locusts.
Ate up their crops.
It ate everything. Right?
Everything.
It stripped all the trees bare. There was no vegetation left.
And there was hail too
There
that
was hail, yes.
destroyed everything else.
And the
Gadfly, yes indeed. And how did Pharaoh respond to each one of these plagues?
Yes, you can go, but leave your little ones here. You can go, but or don't go so far away. Every time he
Worship your
descend,
God here in this land, and they weren't going to do that.
he kept rescinding. He kept going back on his word.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
And it wasn't until the last plague on the firstborn that he decided to really let God's people go.
You can check it.
Except for the fact he had regrets after a few days, right?
Just gave him his own mouth.
That's it.
What was it like when you deal with Hotel?
Yes, he was a character.
Oh, please do tell.
Everything that Jehovah had given me power to do by his Spirit, he thought he could match every one of those things. When I told Aaron to take my rod and throw it down, and it became a snake, then he tried to copy that. In fact, he copied everything to the point where Pharaoh got tired of him making copies of everything that we did by the power of Jehovah. He said he didn't want any more of those plagues on him. He had enough frogs, enough locusts. Everything was too much for him. Yes, he wanted to get rid of him.
And Jannies and Jambres?
Ultimately, they made Pharaoh sick. Yes. But when Jehovah allowed God's people to leave that night, what a sight it was. Everyone walking away from the slavery of all those years to freedom. It was certainly a wonderful sight to see Jehovah's hand leading his people.
And they gave you all everything.
They gave him gifts too,
Absolutely.
didn't they? Like gold and silver.
We did not
and
go
cloth.
away empty-handed.
Mm-mm.
They were begging us to leave.
Yes, they were.
That's just what you got.
And all those things helped along the journey as we passed through different lands, as we were among different people. We were able to survive by Jehovah's aid. But then, when it came the opportunity to enter the promised land, it was God's own people that decided that they were not ready to go. They turned their back on Jehovah, all the gifts that he'd given. And so Jehovah was angry with them. And he turned them to wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. And all those individuals that failed to see Jehovah's blessing, they died in the wilderness. Every single one of them. And it was only 2 individuals that survived. Do you know their names? Quentin.
Joshua and Caleb.
Yes. Joshua and Caleb. Now they were men brave and trusting in Jehovah God.
Joshua was a real big help for you too.
Indeed he was. He was always at my side. Every time we went out to Jehovah God, he and others that stood faithfully for Jehovah came and aided me. And Joshua was like you had at the end of the last system, ministerial servant, working along with the elders, faithfully working hard. No matter what was called on, he was called on to do, he did. And he learned and was taught well because he took over leadership of the nation and led them into the promised land, even though I was not allowed to, because of the words of Jehovah, because of my fault, because I did not give praise to Jehovah God when it came to giving water to the people.
We always thought the people got on your nerves. We hated that. I mean, they were no easy task dealing with those people like that. They were
Oh, indeed.
complaining all the time. If it wasn't for meat, it's water. Why'd you bring us this way? How come this? Never a happy lot.
Had to deal with rebellion.
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
constantly.
But you know, Jehovah God had trained me well.
Yes.
All those years caring for sheep made it easy for me to deal with God's people. Because I recognized that they needed Jehovah's leadership. They needed to hear the word of Jehovah. So no matter what they did, I pleaded with Jehovah that he not destroy them for their hard-heartedness and for their doubts and for their turning their back on him. When Jehovah told me, I will destroy the whole nation and I will make you a nation, I said, no, please, Jehovah. For your name's sake, keep them alive. Keep leading them. And they proved to be a nation that represented Jehovah for many, many years. In fact, they followed the law. When they did well, Jehovah blessed them. And when they turned their back, all the things, all the promises of bad things to happen came upon them. What about you, Quentin? You have a question?
What was it like when you, cause you wrote the book of Job, and I'm wondering, what was it like to talk to him? Cause he had had some experience to explain to you.
Yes. While I was out tending sheep, learning to be a true shepherd of God's people, I came in contact with Job. And his experiences, well, they really taught how Jehovah God is the one that protects and cares for his people. But really, even with a little knowledge, you can serve Jehovah faithfully. You can withstand any of Satan the devil's attacks. Think about all that happened to Job. If it wasn't a report of losing his children, his crops, this man was a sheik in his time, ruling over great crops and lands. And one report after another came in that his children had died. Things had been stolen. A windstorm came along and took all his goods. And then Satan the devil even attacked his own body, causing him to just sit there in the dust, scraping the boils off his skin. You would think he would curse God and die. But no. There was a man of faith. Someone that we can all look to. In fact, he gave me strength from hearing his stories of faithful acts withstanding Satan's attacks. Think about this. You have your best friends come and tell you you're the worst person on the planet Earth. That you deserve all that Jehovah God is doing to you. Well, weren't they wrong? Jehovah never does bad to his people. It's only good that comes from Jehovah's hand. Isn't that right? Shelley, you have a question?
You're kind of following in Job's footsteps because your stories give us faith in how Job's stories gave you faith.
Yes, indeed.
As a matter of fact, your whole life was what we patterned ourselves out in these last days of that old system of things that we lived in. As a matter of fact, coming out of that tribulation was much like when you all came out of Egypt. Jehovah carried us through the great tribulation, the end of the system, like you all came out of Egypt by Jehovah's hand. And we understood it. And we knew that just like you were used, there were faithful ones that were used to guide us through that had been trained very well, like Joshua and others, for us to come out of that wicked system of things alive. Like when you all came out of Egypt, because the system was so bad. As bad as it was during the Noahic flood, Jehovah had to destroy the system because they were not worshiping him. Just a small group was worshiping him.
So now tell me, I wrote in the book of Genesis about the times about Noah and how he had to raise his sons in a very wicked world. Now, Jesus said, now I've read this, that the last days was just like that. Now, tell me, what was it like in the last days of your system? Was it just like Noah's time? Tell me how that was.
You could definitely see demonic influence in the world. You may not have been able to see the demons themselves a lot of times, but you definitely saw mothers killing their children, and not just killing them, but killing them in all sorts of just horrible ways.
Yeah.
And then you saw people trying to eat other people because, you know, just things that you would not believe any sane person would do. And it wasn't so much that it happened like once in a while. This happened often. So you could tell, and in so many parts of the world, you could just tell that there was demonic influence everywhere.
Lawlessness.
Yes.
You didn't even see it in the programs that we have today, like TV, music, even the books that we read. It was all. It's nothing what Jehovah would approve of.
Something that really took us by surprise, letting us all know this has got to be the end. It was literally men marrying men. Homosexuality was rampant.
So it was just like for Abraham's nephew Lot, and the same for him.
Exactly.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
And the thing was, our children were exposed to it at such a level that even in the schools, they were saying, whatever you decide you are, not what you was born as, you could all use the same bathroom. So if you were born a boy but decided you wanted to be a girl, you could go to the girls' restroom. So this was putting our children in danger between the law of the land and the law of Jehovah. So knowing Jesus' words that just like the days of Noah, so ours would be, it became very clear that Noah lived at a very bad time because we knew our time was bad.
So it required a lot of faith then to come through the end of the system, didn't it? It required trust in Jehovah, I'm sure.
It was the only thing we had to be able to survive the system.
Well, you know, the Israelites were commanded to have that blue thread in at the bottom of their skirts so that everyone would recognize them. I heard that all those calling on the name of Jehovah in the last days were clearly recognized by the way they dressed and by the way they acted. That even though you lived in that wicked world, at the end of that system of things, look, you came through. Like the Israelites going into the promised land, you successfully made it. And you got to reap all the blessings of this beautiful paradise. Isn't it good that we can talk about all those times and remember that it was by Jehovah's help that we made it, not by our own strength? So, it was good to come and visit you. Will you be talking about other prophets another time?
Yes.
How many more prophets do you have to discuss?
So many.
So many.
It's only 47, you all.
It's only 47.
Which means we have at least, 35 more to go.
Well, I look forward to visiting again. Maybe we can talk about other prophets and how they were good examples for you in those last days of that wicked system of things. What song